Remembering Santos Rodriguez. On July 24th of 1973, 12-year-old Santos Rodriguez and his 13-year-old brother David were pulled from their home in Dallas, Texas. They were handcuffed and they were forcefully thrown into a police car. This is the story of Santos Rodriguez.
About 2:45 this morning, this Fina service station at 2301 Cedar Springs was the scene of a burglary. But the events that followed caused this to be no ordinary burglary. It resulted in the death of one young boy and a murder charge filed against a Dallas policeman.
Police records noted a burglary call on that Tuesday at 2:10 a.m. at a Fina gas station located on 2301 Cedar Springs in Dallas. This area of Dallas was known as Little Mexico. Now, there are conflicting reports on how and when Dallas police officers Darrell, Cain, and Roy Arnold arrived at the scene of the burglary. An article from the Dallas Times Herald stated that Cain and Arnold reported to the Fina station after receiving information from the police dispatch that there was a robbery in progress, and according to witnesses, the suspects had fled by the time the police arrived. However, according to the Texas State Historical Association, Roy Arnold saw three boys fleeing from the darkened Fina station. Let's stop right here. There are conflicting stories. Or David kept saying that it was a Coke machine. However, when you just see these videos I just pointed out, it's a cigarette machine. They weren't even aware of what they were being accused of. They had no clue it was a cigarette machine. They were told it was a Coke machine. Just hours before the theft of $8 took place, it was confirmed the two brothers played ball with other children in the neighborhood, and they came home around 10 o'clock p.m. and went to bed in the Little Mexico home located at 2921 North Pearl Street. The house belonged to their adopted grandfather, who was 84-year-old Carlos Minez. Elderly Minez only spoke Spanish when the two police officers woke him up around 2:30 a.m. By the way, this was only 20 minutes after the initial call at 2:10 a.m. So the two officers demanded to have David and Santos. The grandfather not only didn't understand what was being yelled at him in English, also didn't know he could stop them from taking these preteens. David and Santos' mother, Bessie, was serving a 5-year sentence for the murder of her abusive boyfriend and had asked Minez to take care of the two boys while she served her sentence. Both Arnold and Cain, convinced it was these two particular boys, they aggressively took them, still in their pajamas and shoeless. These terrified Rodriguez brothers were handcuffed, thrown in the patrol car, and driven to the Fina gas station. And Santos Rodriguez was in the front seat of the car with Officer Roy Arnold, while David Rodriguez was in the back seat of the car with Officer Darrell Cain. The officers accused them of robbing $8 from a Coke machine at the Fina gas station early that morning. The Rodriguez brothers both denied it. It was then Officer Cain thought it was a good idea to play a game of Russian roulette with these two frightened children. This was Officer Darrell Cain's way of forcing the confession he wanted from both David and Santos. Now, the following is from David Rodriguez as he explains what happened next in an interview with the Dallas Morning News. They were trying to force us to say that we burglarized a Coke machine out of $8. David Rodriguez said, "We had nothing to do with it that night. We were asleep in bed. He was mostly questioning my brother."
The grandfather, Carlos Minez, did an interview with WFAA.
A las 11 estaban dormidos. 20 para las 3 llegó la ley buscándolos. Y ya les abrí la puerta y entraron y los levantaron y los esposaron. Los esposaron y los cargaron al carro y se lo llevaron.
Less than an hour later, Santos would be dead.
The death story of a 12-year-old Dallas boy began here at the Fina service station on Cedar Springs. Seconds later, Santos couldn't answer any questions.
When he wasn't getting the answers he wanted, that's when Officer Cain pulled out his gun. He opened the cylinder with me right next to him. I couldn't tell, though, if he was really emptying it or if he was filling it. He put the gun up to my brother's head and said, "Now you're going to tell him the truth." Pulling the trigger once, a click revealed that there was no bullet in that chamber. "I'm telling the truth," Santos shouted, according to David's statement to the police. Officer Darrell Cain pulled the trigger again, just to scare him, as Cain said in a police report. And this time, he shot Santos in the front of his brother. David recalls that he tried to reassure his younger brother, saying to him, "You're going to be all right, Santos." But no response came from his younger brother in the front seat. Blood from his brother's fatal head wound flowed into the back seat floorboard, touching David's bare feet. Dallas patrolman Jerry Foster witnessed on behalf of the DA. Foster corroborated David's statement about the two officers arriving at the scene before the shooting. Foster stated that he and his partner, Thomas McKee, were the officers David saw that morning. Foster also stated that he was at the driver's door of the car where David and Santos were sitting when he heard a gunshot and saw the front of the vehicle light up. He then stated that he saw Santos' head fall back and bleeding coming from the left side of Santos' head. He went over to the side of the car where Santos was and tried to help him and saw Cain getting out of the car. Foster, within seconds, went to Cain and immediately took Cain's pistol from him and did not see Cain touch the cylinder of the gun after leaving the vehicle. When Foster unloaded Cain's gun, he saw 5 live rounds and 1 hole in the cylinder. Foster could hear Cain screaming before Cain quickly exited the vehicle and stated, my God, what have I done? I didn't mean to do it." Foster also saw Roy Arnold leave the vehicle and vomited. Darrell Cain claimed the killing was an accident and that he had removed all 6 rounds from his pistol chambers and was only trying to scare Rodriguez with pretend Russian roulette.
Mr. Cain, can you tell us what happened?
Officer Fred M. Jenkins, who investigated the scene of the burglary and took several hand and fingerprints from the machine that had been broken into. The prints were compared by 4 different officers to the prints of Santos, David, and a cousin of theirs who had also become a suspect. And nothing, not one, was found to be associated with David or Santos or their cousin at the crime scene. Darrell Cain was found guilty of murder with malice, but served only 2.5 years in prison. In 1977, his murder conviction was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court by declining to even hear the appeal. He was released from Huntsville prison in 1979. Officer Darrell Cain said Santos' last words were, "I'm telling the truth."
The police came. They knocked on the door and they came inside and picked me up. Me and my brother. They woke us up. And then they took us into the squad car. One squad car. They came in 2. And then they said that we ran away from the police and something like that.
Did you?
We didn't. We never were down there at the first station. They said it looked like me. He took it out. He was what do you call it? He took out rolling the
chambers.
Mm-hmm. He saw inside of it. He stopped it and looked inside of it. It had around 3 or 2 bullets in it. He closed it back down and he pointed at my brother's head. He told him to tell him the truth. And he said that he said the truth, except that he clicked it once, he didn't fire. The second time I told him that this time it has a bullet in it. He clicked it and it fired and it blew his side of the face. The bullet went right through him, through the side of his ear from the bottom.
What did you do then?
I was trying to knock the gun out of his hand, except that I was cuffed up in the back.
Now, as far as Officer Darrell Cain, with him saying it was an accident, he didn't mean to do that, people may have believed that if that was his first time anything like that happened. But Officer Cain had previously was involved in the controversial death of an 18-year-old Michael Moorhead. On April 20th of 1970, at around 3:10 a.m., Cain and another officer were investigating a silent burglar alarm that had been set off at the Empire Bar and Grill located at 3307 Munger Avenue. They found Moorhead and a relative burglarizing the restaurant. Moorhead and his 26-year-old relative fled the scene, but Moorhead was shot 3 times as he fled. This led to his death. In total, Cain had fired 5 shots and Kirksey had fired 8. Moorhead's grandmother produced recorded statements from witnesses claiming that Moorhead had been shot while he was on the ground and that he was begging the officers not to shoot him and for his life. No charges were ever brought against Cain or Kirksey, but they were moved to another patrol area in part due to the public pressure and the protests. The killing of Santos Rodriguez galvanized our community, says Albert Valtierra, who was president of the Dallas Mexican-American Historical League. In the mid-70s, there were about 80,000 Latinos in Dallas, Valtierra says. At the time, the Latino community was just getting established. We were buying houses, getting good jobs. There was still resistance from the powers that be, so we had to go out and claim the power for ourselves. 4 days after Santos died, activists came together for a protest march. This was really the first time Mexican-Americans had organized to have a protest, says longtime Latino activist Rene Martinez. It was Saturday afternoon. The temperatures were in the triple digits. Thousands of Mexican Americans marched and shouted in Spanish, "Justice for the people." What began as a peaceful march turned violent quickly. People threw bottles, destroyed a police car, and ignited a police motorcycle. 5 officers were injured and more than 30 people were arrested. Since the murder of Santos, both the city of Dallas and the Dallas Police Department have made many steps to better serve this community. As early as 1957, Gabriel Davila Macias was the first Latino in the Dallas Police Department, according to the Dallas Morning News. This was a step in the right direction, but much more was obviously needed. In 1975, Cynthia Villarreal became the first Latina to put on the Dallas police uniform. This was 2 years after Santos was killed. Villarreal says that it took decades to improve the relationships between Latinos and the police. In the immediate wake of the killing, the Rodriguez family never received an apology from the city. On September 21st of 2013, Mayor Mike Rawlings apologized during a Conversations on Race program.
Our legacy of racism. The city of Dallas,
Dallas Police,
the Dallas Police, and I will tell you this, I got a lot of questions about apologizing for the death of Santos Rodriguez.
Do it.
A mother of Bessie, I don't have any clue why this city hasn't apologized for that. There's no excuse for that.
Amen.
And on behalf of the citizens of Dallas, on behalf of the Dallas City Council, on behalf of the Dallas Police Department, we wholeheartedly apologize for the death.
8 years later, on July 24, 2021, Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia offered an apology to Santos' mother at a graveside service.
Chief Garcia did what no other Dallas police chief has done.
Nosotros
Apologized to Santos' mother.
On behalf of the Dallas Police Department, as a father, I am sorry. We are sorry that someone entrusted to protect you, someone who wore the same uniform that I proudly wear today, took your son and took David's brother away by way of murder. Our apology is the least that we can do. And again, I'm surprised it's taken this long.
For Bessie, the apology was something she longed for.
It was real special,
Carlos.
Everything.
Thank you.
On February the 12th, 2022, 49 years after his death, a statue of Santos Rodriguez sits in the place where he and his brother David would frequent, in Pike Park, Little Mexico. Santos Rodriguez should still be here with us today, wrote Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson. He would have been able to spend the day at Pike Park with his family. This new statue of Santos at the park will serve as a reminder of the horrific injustice of his death.
It's pretty. That's a big honor after so many years. Remembering all that. It's been a long time.
Here we go.
Bessie put her fingerprint on the statue.
That'll stay.
Right in the palm of Santos's hand.
So we have my fingerprint. Yes.
Very nice.
Hundreds gathered to see the unveiling of the statue. Attendees covered it in flowers as they wept, looking at his image. But the sculpture will only stand as an enduring and joyful symbol of Santos's life. Eric Johnson added, "Time does not heal all wounds. We must take international steps to heal, and this was an important and overdue step for our city and for Santos's family." Rodriguez family would only ask that when people of Dallas hear the name Santos Rodriguez, they think not of unwanted violence that became associated with his name in 1973. They think of the real Santos Rodriguez, a gentle, well-liked 12-year-old boy who had his life tragically taken from him.